Video.
It's supposed to be uncut. Okay, we are Group 8. We're talking about The Big Short. Patrick, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, so let's just discuss question one first. Was there any way that the 2008 stock market crash could have been avoided in the preceding years? Why or why not? What do you guys think?
I definitely think it could have been. I think the banks, if they would have stopped giving out those subprime mortgages, I think they would have been able to stop the market crash in 2008.
Grant, any thoughts?
Yeah, so I definitely think that it could have been stopped. I think it's partially at the government's fault and the stockbrokers' fault. I think the government didn't put enough regulations, on this subprime market, and I think that the stockbrokers kind of saw this loophole, took the opportunity to make some cash instead of reporting it to fix the market.
I thought the bankers and stuff took advantage of the system, took advantage of the fact that not too many people knew much about it, and that's when you saw those loans being made out, and then mortgage-backed securities as well. So you had tons of people buying up these subprime loans that weren't actually good loans, but the bankers made them look like good loans, and the government turned a blind eye, partly because the economy was good, and corruption, things like that as well. You had people going to jail after. So I think government shouldn't have taken their eyes off Wall Street. Bankers should have had some ethical consideration for others as well. So
Right, and I think it ties into the banks. The banks were profiting off these mortgages that were subprime, and then obviously the securities played into that. And once the triple B, the mortgages went, the whole market just followed suit.
yeah, so in the book it kind of tackles, was it the fact that the banking system was incompetent and didn't understand the risks and the loans that were being made, or is it the fact that they were just taking advantage of the situation? And that's kind of what a few of the characters in the book who are shorting the market, what they talk about. Cover that one good enough, boys?
Yeah, it's a good
All right.
Number two. In your opinion, why are Eisman and Burry's warnings ignored? Is there another strategy that they could have taken?
Well, I think the issue was they went to the banks, and the banks were profiting off the loans. So obviously, even if the banks were aware of the issue that was going on, they weren't going to stop because they were the ones profiting off of it. So I think if they would have gone maybe to the government, or I think the government's really the only place they could have gone that would have.
Which even then wasn't really a sure thing either.
Right, yeah.
I don't know, what I kind of thought of was they were so against the grain in terms of everyone's making so much money, the economy is really good. They were kind of lone wolves in a sense, saying this is really not right. So they kind of looked like idiots, but in reality they really weren't. So is it could another strategy have been avoided? I don't know, they were crazy as it was portrayed. So I don't know if they were maybe involved in the government, then maybe they could have done something. But I don't think you really could have done much differently because people are making a lot of money off of, like S1 said. So. Grant, anything to add there?
Well, I don't know. I'm thinking about why their warnings were really ignored, and I'm just thinking it's because there's evil people out there.
Yeah.
People just want to make money, and they don't want to see these four nerds tell them that they can't make money. It's a bad thing to do.
And part of the reason too is Eisman and Burry, they looked at what was under the hood of the economy. Actually looked at the loans being made out, looked at how the people who were paying back the loans were making money, and no one was just willing to look under the hood, or they're either incompetent or they just didn't want to because they were making so much money.
Or
so
we're just turning a blind eye.
right, exactly. So it's hard to get some of that information. You have to be smart to understand where and how and what it all means. That's part of it too as well. So. All right, I think we covered that one pretty good though. Number 3, does the government adequately respond to the crisis? If not, what might have been done differently?
What do you think, Isaac?
I don't think that they really did a whole lot to prevent anything from happening, because they weren't really aware of the issues that were going on with the housing market.
How did they respond to the crisis?
I suppose I'm not sure that they really did much. I think they just kind of bailed out the banks. Just gave them a bunch of money to make up for it, everything that they'd lost.
Yeah, in the end of the book, it kind of talks about how the people were angry that the banks basically got I don't know, like free lunch basically after they made like all the mistakes and stuff, and like I don't know, it kind of like put a bad taste in people's mouths after like the government really didn't take it to the banks after the banks took it to the people. So I don't know if there was a better solution, because like if they didn't bail them out, then like what do you do? But
yeah, I think it's crazy that only one of the bankers throughout the whole situation went to jail, and it was only for a couple of years. I think.
yeah, I mean there's some like civil lawsuits, but it wasn't like and like it's hard to believe that like no one knew what was going on, or like stuff like people did know what was going on, and I don't know, it was just not good. Grant, anything?
I don't know. I think you guys said it pretty well. I think the government just didn't respond adequately. You know.
Yeah. Question 4: Is it immoral to make money from other people's suffering? Explain your answer.
No, yeah, I think definitely, like for sure, benefiting off of like other people's ignorance, or like them just like simply not knowing what's going on with like the market and just taking advantage of people like that, and then just stabbing them all in the back, basically. Like that's like not a cool thing to do. I don't think. Definitely immoral.
I think this question kind of ties into more of like the main characters in the book, like shorting the market as well.
Yeah.
So like, what do you guys think? Is that immoral to like, I don't know, like bet the right way, but like it to also lead to like suffering and things like that?
Yeah, I sympathize with Eisman specifically because he did short the market, but he kind of suffered through his decision, and he tried to warn people, but no one listened to him. And at the end, even though he came out profiting from the situation, he mentally wasn't the same, because he knew that millions of Americans just lost their homes, and even though he was going to win off of it, he understood the implications of what was going on.
Yeah, one of my favorite like quotes from him was like, I have to go and win some morality back, after he talked to one of the Goldman Sachs bankers. So like, I don't know, like it was just, it's not like the greatest thing, especially like in Eisman's case, but like also like what do you do? Like he was right about it, and I don't know. It's kind of a difficult question to answer, because he's not necessarily wronging them. The banks are, but like he's profiting off the banks wronging them. So I don't know. Grant, what do you think?
I think the banks are
At fault.
definitely the immoral people in this like situation. It's not like they're the ones that created this market, and they're the ones that have this system that's set up so that the people who have like who can't pay for these houses are being like punished for it. And I mean, it's hard to like fault these investors and bankers that like see this thing and they're just like, oh, I can make a lot of money off of this. Like when it's like I don't know, it's the whole system's fault that makes it so immoral.
It's the system. I agree. All right. Should we just go to number?
I'm gonna stay on number 4 for a second, but shift a little bit.
Okay.
So like in a broader sense, for example, insulin is really expensive, yet really cheap to produce. Do you think that's moral to hike up those prices like that when people are going to suffer and not be able to pay that?
I don't like that.
So do you think government regulations should step in that situation?
I kind of think they should, because some people like need insulin to live, and making it so expensive that people can barely afford it is, especially when like they're turning a huge profit from it, it's just wrong to do that, since like pharmaceutical companies typically tend to be well off anyway. I don't know, it feels wrong to me.
There should be like adequate competition within the market too. Like if you have a monopoly and a company's charging just outrageous rates for insulin, like that's not fair. So like you either
Cut them.
break up the company, or like promote competition. Like you can still do it like in a capitalist like way, or like have decent regulation on like price caps as well. But like there just has to be competition, so like the market's fair, basically, is what I think.
Yeah.
All right, number 5. The 3 main characters of the book are presented as heroes, even though they profit just as much as the subprime lenders. All things considered, are they really heroes?
I
wouldn't say they're heroes.
Heroes is a tough word.
Yeah,
like, did they prevent anything? Like,
No.
They didn't really have much of an impact. They just kind of felt bad and made money.
Yeah, like they were telling people that this market's like gonna be bad, and then it's gonna cause like a economic downturn, which it obviously it did, but like I don't think they were heroes because they were saying that, but then they were like making the money too. And
Yeah, like they didn't really prevent.
I think
much.
they just knew the risk, and
Yeah.
so that's why they were more successful, and that's why they were able to like step out of it when the time
Yeah.
came.
I wouldn't call them like heroes, but I'd call them like intelligent, like cunning, because they did what no one else was willing to do, and they took on like a huge risk. Because this like crash, which the stock market crashed, but it was really the real estate crash, like had never happened in the United States ever. So they're like that was I don't know. They're a hero in the sense that they called it out, but not really a hero in terms of the people. Anything else, Esty?
Yeah, I mean, like you guys said, they were able to see it happening, but they
Yeah.
weren't really able to stop it, so I don't think they were heroes.
All right. How do the main characters' life experiences influence their views of the subprime crisis? What do you guys think?
Kind of an interesting question. I don't know. I think there. So you see, like these characters' lives are just kind of like. I don't know. I feel like when the market was bad, they started having like worse experiences, and
Yeah.
kind of just like affected both of it. So you see, like, Burry, his kid gets diagnosed with Asperger's, and then he realizes that he's probably has autism too.
Yeah.
And so then he like it affects how he deals with people and how he deals
Yeah.
with everything else.
Yeah, kind of piggybacking off the whole Burry thing, like throughout the book, he's just kind of an oddball.
Yeah.
And I feel like that like odd kind of nature about him, like whether it's like autism or just like how he is, like influenced like how he's able to perceive like what's going on, because like he looks at what other people don't.
Yeah.
Anything else to add?
Yeah, I think in terms of Feldman and his partner, I think their life experience was specifically in the financial side of things. They always betted against what was it? They shorted like the most stable markets, and that's exactly what they did with the housing crisis. They didn't short the triple B bonds; they shorted the top mortgages. So I think that just plays into how their life experience, specifically in the financial sector, played into how they were able to profit in the housing market.
Sure. So number 7, how does the book influence your view of the American financial system?
I think it can bring to light that there like is corruption that like goes on in our financial system, and like we might not as American citizens be aware to it. Like a lot of the American citizens that got scammed out of their money weren't aware that they were going to be losing their money, and I think that could potentially happen again. You know, there is corruption kind of thing.
Yeah, I think there definitely just needs to be some more regulation. People gotta look at like every little thing that they can, like when there's things like what the subprime market is, and you know people can like short it and make money and you know like kind of hack the system. I think people gotta like almost like turn that in, like show it to the government. And I mean these guys tried to do that, but like I don't know, it just shows that the system's kind of messed up.
Yeah, well, also like what you're saying, like once the banks did what they did, there was like really no turning back of like
Yeah.
what really
Yeah.
happened. But the way it kind of like it like changes my view or like influences it is just like the need for regulation, the need for the government not to take their eyes off like the big banks, because like when you're handling a lot of the money, like you have a lot of responsibility, and with responsibility, like there needs to be like a close eye, because if you're not handling it responsibly, you can affect a lot of people. So I think the government maybe even more than like the financial system needs to be looked at, because like you have greedy people within the banks and such, but like the government's supposed to check that a little bit. So that's how I look at it.
Yeah, I think it exposed some of the shortcomings of both the government system and the financial system, especially when such a high percentage of American funds is in such a low amount of banks. It's crazy how much control they have over the whole financial sector.
Yeah, and also kind of makes you view like the American financial system as kind of like the villains, kind of, because they kind of screwed the little guy, and then like the little guy got screwed and the banks didn't. So like I don't know, like kind of creates a disdain for the financial system, and I don't know, just not good. Anything else, boys? All right. Number 8, in your understanding, what is the root cause of the subprime crisis? Is there more than one? Explain your answer.
I think there definitely is more than one.
Yeah.
I mean, we just kind of talked about it. Like,
Yeah.
it's the government not having enough regulations. It's the banks and everyone that's working there, the financial system that's like screwing everything up because
Yeah.
they just let this happen pretty much.
Yeah.
And even small lenders, like in the book, the ones in I want to say Florida, that were just giving out mortgages, knowing that people weren't going to be able to pay them off. But
Like the greedy people.
in the short, they were going to win off of it, and they got rich off of it. And
Yeah.
just like even on a small scale, not in big scale like the banks did, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of people
And
ground level who influenced that.
Yeah, and it's not even necessarily their fault too, because they weren't required to do credit checks or income checks on any of these people. So like if you're in the mortgage lender's shoes, like what do you do? Like you have to compete, you have to do what's right for you as well. So like it's really a system issue, and I think that's what we've really been touching on, and I think that's I don't know, the root of the cause. We just really needed a system change. So number 9, what does the story of Howie Hubler tell us about the nature of Wall Street?
I think it's just shows like how aggressive it can be. So like Howie, he like loses like $9 billion for the company he works for, and I mean he lost it on stuff that our main characters were doing like the whole time in the movie, and like everyone else was doing it too, but like obviously our main characters knew that there was downsides to everything and like you had to like be careful. But this Howie Hubler just like he just like wasn't smart enough to do it correctly, so he like loses all this money. And I think it just shows that like I don't know, Wall Street can be pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can definitely lose everything.
Yeah.
If you're on Wall Street.
You just gotta be smart about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta make informed choices.
All right. Want to go to the
Yeah,
next
I'm
page?
gonna jump to question 6 on the book discussion questions.
Okay.
What do you think the author's purpose was in writing this book?
I think it was like a couple things. I think first was just to display like the certain, I don't know, like intelligent decisions the people who went against the market made, because they were going against what everyone was thinking. So I think like it's highlighting that intelligent decision, and I'll let you guys get into the other reasons because I think you guys get them as well.
I think so. This Michael Lewis, he wrote the what was it, Liar's Poker too, I think, and they talk about that in the book, and then he like has that conversation with his old boss at the end of the book, where the boss is like saying like, oh, like it kind of like made me mad when you wrote this book, and, like because Liar's Poker is about, it's just about the stock market pretty much, about Wall Street and how like they're all playing a game, but they're all just like lying to each other. And I think it's like kind of the same thing with this book, is he's just like trying to show like the true nature of Wall Street and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely to like inform people about like
for sure.
they can be making risky decisions and they need to be careful with what they're doing and who they're dealing with, because not everybody has their best interests in mind.
Yeah, I think Grant touched on it pretty well. Like it kind of just shows the nature of Wall Street as well, and like the people who really run the show in terms of like the financial sector. Like it's not like they're not always looking out for what's right for everyone. Like definitely looking out for their own self-interest. So anything else, Estienne?
Yeah, I mean, you guys touched on it pretty well, but
Yeah.
I think it's kind of like an expose and an inside view into the life of a stockbroker and a mortgage lender, and
Yeah.
it's interesting to see how in the build up to such a big event like the 2008 market crash, how they lived life and how they were able to experience all that.
Awesome. So I'm gonna jump to question 7.
Yeah.
What is the connection between the book you read and your global goal? Do you think you've learned more about your topic through reading this book? Have you gained empathy? Has it changed your perspective? What do you guys think?
So I think like looking at the link between our global goal and this book, you gotta think about like who we're trying to look at, and I think the biggest group that was affected was like, I mean, you can say that these like Howie Hubler's affected because he loses $9 billion, but like him and those other brokers are the ones that are like kind of hacking the system. I think the people that are affected the most are definitely the lower class, that part of society that like
Got taken
yeah,
advantage
that
of.
the bankers
Yeah.
were like taking all this money from just because they wanted to make money.
Yeah, I think it also gives an insight into how government regulation can play a big role of controlling the financial sector, and how sometimes it's needed and sometimes there's problems that can't be solved. But like I said, sometimes the government has to step in, and in this instance it didn't, so it's interesting to see that.
So, go ahead, Isaac.
All right, I was gonna say, like, I think in like other countries where they're less developed and they don't have as much like government restrictions because they haven't had issues like this happen, would kind of be in the
I don't know. We'll just keep going. Someone's knocking or something.
someone's at the door.
Whatever.
Yeah, like I was just saying, like those other countries that don't have these regulations, like I think it brings like a good perspective that like maybe they need to like hear about this or like have these issues presented to them so that they don't make like the same mistakes and have the same things happen to them.
Yeah, I kind of connected it to like our global goal is decent work and economic growth, and what that really means to me is like sustainability as well. And I think like when you have like unregulated lending and things like that, like it's only a matter of time before that like bubble or that like risky practice like pops and like it all comes crashing down. So I think like as we look to, like Isaac was touching on, developing countries and like emerging markets, I think just the emphasis on proper regulation so that you can have that sustainable long-term economic growth and not like economic instability, but also like political instability, because we had a lot of that too after 2008. So all right, what else do we need to touch on? All right, I've got one. 11, what did you like or dislike about the book that hasn't already been discussed?
I don't know. I kind of liked how it was a story, like within a story almost, because it was this Michael Lewis talking to another person about everything that happened, and so we kind of like learned about, I don't know, we just got like the insider view of everything that went on, instead of like it wasn't the people in the stories telling us the story. It was someone else telling the story about, I don't know, I thought it was cool.
I liked how it was also informative within the story.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the story by itself. He also like dives into some of those topics and is able to explain them well, and
Yeah.
that's nice.
One thing I liked about the book was that it was like generally pretty funny as well. Like it wasn't just like a super mundane like history lesson. It was like woven into stories, and the characters had personalities, and there was like funny language and stuff like that, which isn't great for school appropriacy, but it was funny nonetheless.
Yeah, definitely agree.
Anything else?
Makes it easier to read.
Yeah,
I think, for sure.
definitely.
It's
I would
not
like
just
more-
like this mundane,
yeah.
boring book about the stock market. Like, who wants to read that? So.
It's different than someone writing a story about like their discrimination or something like that, like I don't know, I thought it was just better almost.
What's your guys' opinion on what's the most important takeaway from this story?
Grant, you want to go?
I think it's just like, I mean, we've touched on it before, but like about the nature of Wall Street and everything that we've learned, and we just gotta realize that, I don't know, it's a cruel world out there, and that people are gonna take every opportunity they can to make money, even if it's immoral and it takes from other people.
I think piggybacking off of that, I think the idea of if something's too good, that maybe it isn't. It's too good to be true. Sorry. But be skeptical of things, especially when it comes to money. A lot of people are trying to profit off of you and those around you. So be skeptical and
I'm gonna go a little bit more on the bigger side of what they were talking about, but just like you need proper regulations. We've talked about it a decent amount in this discussion, but you need proper regulations. You need to educate bankers, like up and coming bankers, about like what your decisions and like how they affect others, because like it may have been the top like bankers who like kind of set the status quo on what they wanted, but like it was ultimately like some of the, probably the people lower in the organization like pushing out these loans and stuff, and like you just have to, I don't know, have some ethical consideration for others, because ultimately like you have a lot of power in situations like that, and it's really important, especially when you see like people without their homes and all that. Like it's sad. So I don't know, just education.
Yeah, also need to make sure there's like proper regulation in place so that the average citizen doesn't just get screwed over by like these big banks who know everything, and they devise like this plan to screw everyone over. So I think that's pretty important as well.
Yeah, so we're nearing that time in the period, so I think we finished up. But thank you for listening, whoever is listening. But
Thank you very much.
thanks.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys.
Awesome.